I started investing with student rentals at the beginning, and I think that was probably because of my age. That's kind of where I felt comfortable starting. But then as I got my feet wet a little bit, I got into the some other strategies. So doing the buy, fix, renovate, refinance strategy. And I was doing triplexes and then moved up to fourplex. So now for properties, I focus mostly in multi-unit. So from kind of triplex to eightplex is the range that I focus on. And now that I've been investing and was putting in that effort at the beginning, I've also now moved a little bit more toward passive investing. So doing some lending deals, some land development deals, and things like that.
Nice. And what part of the country are you in?
I'm in Ontario.
And are you just investing in the province of Ontario, specifically in where you live, or whereabouts?
Yeah, so my properties are, I actually have 2 pieces of land in the States, but my rental properties are all in Ontario, but they're all spread out. So some of them are like, one of them is 6 hours away from me. So they're all spread out. And I've definitely focused with the strategy of invest where returns are best, looking for high cash flow properties. And, you know, I've been taught that if the numbers don't make sense in your backyard, then you have to go elsewhere to where the numbers make sense. So that's, yeah, so they're kind of scattered all over Ontario.
That's awesome. And super relevant for everybody here in Victoria. Like if you're sitting here in Fairfield, you know, it's going to be pretty hard to get a cash flowing property at this point in time. But thanks for the rundown. Megan, you're next on my list. I think a lot of us already know who you are.
Megan Betker. I think a lot of you probably have met me at the meetups. I got involved in real estate, I want to say it was 5 years ago now, pretty much, not including like my principal residence. And I started by wanting to purchase a property and actually going to Keyspire workshop, which Nicole was likely working at, and I got a really good foundation there in terms of what information I thought I needed to get started. A week later, I went and bought my first rental property, which is buy and hold. I still have, and since that time, I've done a couple flips. Have another buy and hold, renovating a personal residence, and now just recently closed on purchasing a few lots that we are going to be building on with a partner.
Nice.
So not necessarily, well, we'll see what the times bring, but we're building in Fairfield, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm up to in terms of real estate, and yeah.
That's awesome.
Again, those are all, I guess they're all in Victoria. One of them is in Kelowna, so compared to Victoria, that's still about 6 hours away if you count ferry.
Yeah, no, for sure. Congrats on the land development pieces that you have.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's exciting. We'll be in the same boat a little bit because if all things go well, we'll be starting on our Salt Spring deal in the next couple weeks.
So you're just as nervous as I am.
Yeah. There's been interesting conversations with investors over the last couple of weeks, like just with, you know, people holding their breath or backing away or looking at doubling down, and just, you know, the areas of perception and how people perceive, you know, where we're at today, whether it's an opportunity or whether they want to, you know, run away from the unknown. It's interesting to me. Laurie, it's so good to see you. Give us a rundown on when you got started and what you're up to.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on the call. I started, what really inspired me to get involved in real estate was when I spent 8 years in the Caribbean, and I worked for a developer there. And a lot of people that I was selling properties to were very wealthy people. And I was always, curious as to how they grew their wealth and how they got to where they were. And a lot of them, said it was through real estate. So I thought, wow, there's something about this real estate investing. I didn't have, the pension. I didn't have, a secure pension. And I knew that I was an entrepreneur at heart and would be more going down the self-employment route, and that I had to build a future for myself. And my family, and thought real estate was a great way to build wealth. And so when I moved back from the Caribbean, I started educating myself, joined REIN. I was part of Fortune Builders, started a women's meetup group for about 7 years, and was really just hitting the ground hard with education, and started to, I was buying cash flowing properties. At the time, Alberta was on fire. So I ended up buying 4 properties there, rental properties, which were all cash flowing, very, 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 very successful properties. And then of course the Alberta market turned, and I still now have 3 properties there. I also bought a rental property with my sister in Surrey, and it's been a great cash flowing property for the last 6 years there. We have it rented out, furnished property rented out. Never had any vacancies, so that's been done very well for us. And then our last project, my husband and I, we bought a property in Saanich that was zoned for a duplex. So we bought the property, we fully renovated it, and then partnered with a builder and built the other half of the property and converted it into and stratified it a duplex. And then we sold both sides. So now we're currently renting right now, and we were sort of looking for that next project. We want to get into multifamily, and so we're just going to sit on the sidelines right now and see how things unfold over the next few months here, but continuing to see properties that come, the new listings that come out, and just time to do our research and further education right now.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different areas of expertise here. I think the underlying piece of all of our different businesses is we have that steady stream of passive income from some cash flowing assets. And it kind of sounds like we've all kind of started around the same time. My first investment was 8 years ago, and I started taking this seriously 4 years ago. And so we're all kind of within that same type of window, which is going to be really cool as we kind of move forward into new segments and new segues into our own different businesses and lifestyles. I really wanted to talk on something here that I think is really important. We've looked into who our community is, and we survey our community often, and a lot of times, most people recognize us from doing our live events for our meetups and stuff. And it's always interesting to me to see how balanced our audience is. So currently right now, as it stands, the data shows that 51% of our audience is women and 49% being male. And had you rewound that 10 years ago, that probably wouldn't be the same statistic. And so as that trend continues, which I think it's going to, I'd love just to hear what your guys' message would be to women who are just getting started. Either they've had male roles in their life that have dominated financing, or they're younger now and are living more independent. So what would your message be to those people who are just getting started and might be a little bit nervous on controlling that aspect of their life? Nicole, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, it was interesting when you guys had suggested like this, topic for this panel, because I've never really given thought to, until in prep for this, given thought to my investing as a woman, because I don't really have anything to compare it to, right? Like I don't know what I would have done differently or how things would have gone better or worse had I been a man in these deals that I've done. But I was thinking about it, and so at my experience, I was also starting young, right? I was 23 or 24 when I started investing. And probably at the beginning, I didn't have a ton of confidence. I was really excited about this stuff, but didn't have a ton of confidence. I don't know if that was because, along with being young, I was a woman, and I think that we do see a lot of speakers and a lot of authorities in this industry are men. But I would very much hope that, any woman who's interested in this doesn't feel like this is a man's world. And, there's lots of women that are doing this and that are really successful at it. And, if for them, they're going to be more motivated by finding a woman. I hope that they reach out and connect with other women and find different, podcasts that are being done by women if they are looking for those role models. But like in my experience, there's no reason that a woman can't do this as well as a man. I'm really interested to see from the other two women here if they had a different experience with their investing. I know that I was on a call when I was a few years ago, and a realtor said to me, "How old are you?" You didn't say, "Are you a woman?" So I would say that I maybe felt more held back by age and less so by being a woman. But I'm really interested to hear from the other two women if they felt that way.
Yeah, Laure, do you want to jump in now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, prior to being in real estate, I worked in the brokerage industry. So I've worked always mostly with men. I mean, that industry, the finance industry, is a male dominating industry as well. And so for me, I'm very much an energy person. Like, I believe that you have to have the right energy to form a team that you really align with. You have similar values and goals. So whether it's a man or a woman, I've worked with both, but I do sometimes think that there may be women out there that perhaps connect more with women. And you might want to reach out to a woman role model if that is the case, just to sort of, if you are feeling nervous or uneasy, whatever your comfort level is. But I think it's important to just align yourself with the right person that you have a similar vision and goal with. So whether it's man or woman, I've worked, I've got both on my team, and I hope that women don't feel intimidated, because there are a lot of, as Nicole was saying, a lot of successful women in real estate out there and are willing to help and to mentor. So just reach out to whoever you feel comfortable with, would be my advice.
Yeah, that's great advice as well. Megan?
I think similar to both Laurie and Nicole, I've never, when I got into real estate, and even before I had gotten into it and was thinking about it, it never fazed me that there would be a difference between what a male and a female could achieve in that world. But I think I've been very blessed. Like, I've never had that be a qualifier in any real aspect of my life. So I don't think it's something that I necessarily give much thought to. I was lucky that I grew up with HGTV, and there was a ton of females that were doing a lot of different investments and flips and things like that. And that was kind of like what sparked my interest when I was super young. So I thought if they could do it, then I didn't really see that it was necessarily a male dominated industry. Where I do see there being more males is potentially like in the construction side, like doing their own renos and things like that. I'm hoping that there will be a transition in that regard, because I see a lot more women going into trades nowadays. It is not my forte. You are not going to see me doing that. I've built cabinets and stuff, and I do not like it. I will crunch numbers any day, but if you want me building cabinets, I don't enjoy it. I'll do it, but I don't enjoy it. So I think, like, my partner, he really likes doing the flips with me, because he likes doing that kind of construction-y stuff, right? So in that regard, I think there may still be some traditional tendencies maybe, but I think hopefully there's going to be a little bit of paradigm shift in that regard. But I don't think that I've been held back in any way being a female, whether that's just, it didn't faze me, so my confidence wasn't hindered by that worry. I know I have a lot of, being in the financial services, I have a lot of clients, women coming out of maybe like a divorce or a widow situation. So now they're almost thrust into managing finances, and then they kind of get involved or have some interest in getting involved in real estate. And I think in situations like that, the best piece of advice I can do is build a team. Because as long as you have a team, whether it's male or female, you have those resources to any concerns you have a sounding board, and hopefully people that have done maybe something that you haven't, so that they have some expertise in that regard, so that they can give you that foundation of confidence to kind of get into it a little bit more. I think that's kind of the piece of advice I would give to those people that have that apprehension. But I think that anyone can do it, anything. I think there's a huge transition in terms of women breaking glass ceilings in any industry. So I don't see why real estate has to be any different.
Completely agree. And I was born and raised by two strong-minded women. My mom got me into real estate for one, and she kind of always, I guess, drove a lot of the decisions in our home, as well as my stepmom in divorced families. So in most cases, I would say that women have had the biggest influence on me, in my professional career, just by how I was raised and guided. I think one of the commonalities that we all have, especially, Megan and I now going into a development project, but I know that Laurie and Nicole have also worked closely with investors and are probably continually working with investors. In this time of uncertainty with coronavirus going around, how has those conversations changed, and how are you addressing those questions that they have, or the concern of, I'm sure there's people out there that are completely just like walking away from real estate saying, what, I don't know what's happening right now. The last 10 years, we've been able to watch this trend of, appreciation and activity, but now everything's kind of basically taken a halt. So how those conversations changed, and if so, how are you handling, I guess, that adversity with investors? And Megan, I'd like to start with you.
I have a lot of clients that are involved in real estate investing, or clients that their intention is to get involved in that side of real estate, in addition to having their principal residence. And in the past couple of weeks, the conversations that we've been having are, I guess, more so bouncing ideas around to one another, because there's so many different opinions right now. What our economy is going to be going through, what people are dealing with right now, is not something any of us have experienced. So it is uncharted territory. We can't just look back at 2008 and think that this is the same, because it's not. Personally, the conversations, the points that have come up with clients are, as long as we have gotten them into a pretty stable financial position, I do think that there's going to be opportunities when when people start to resume working and things like that, in terms of real estate, whether it's because people are unfortunately forced out of homes. So there may be some foreclosures or bankruptcy related sales. I could see there being opportunities there. I don't necessarily think that interest rates are going to be going up anytime soon. So I think that there's an opportunity in terms of getting low rates. There might not be a huge inventory, but I don't know if there's going to be a ton of transactions occurring after this. We'll have to see. So I do think that there's going to be that in the downturn, that's when you can, if you can afford it, to buy the properties. And then next time the market does go up, that's when you're kind of laughing, right? So I know when I purchased my couple buy and hold properties, it was right before we had this last real estate kind of boom. So the timing worked out. So now it may be purchasing a property and having to hold on longer to see that appreciation change. But as long as you're doing it with a long-term plan and not necessarily I'm going to hold this for a year and hope that it has a huge increase and then sell it, I think it's I still think it's I think there's going to be some great opportunities in the near future. So as nervous as I am about what's going on right now, I am excited about the prospects of what's going to come out of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Laurie, how about yourself?
Well, I have some investors and friends that bought into Alberta quite heavily. So right now, I think a lot of us are just, trying to do the best we can to get to weather the storm. Whether it might, be, keeping in touch with my tenants, making sure they're okay, asking if there's anything I can do to help them, how their properties are, but also speaking to the banks to see about deferring payments if needed. So far, I've been lucky that none of my tenants have lost their jobs, but it might come. And so I think I'm just preparing for that, as well as some of my investor friends and colleagues. We know that we're going through times that we've never been through this before. So there's a lot of uncertainty out there. But like Megan, I think this is also going to allow for some great opportunities. So, protect yourself the best you can, whether again it's having to defer mortgage payments or, just keep in touch with your tenants, see how they're doing, how they're weathering the storm. But I do believe that we have to stay calm. We have to stay healthy. Take care of your mind and your health right now, because, it's the best thing we can do. We have control of that. So I do believe when it passes, it's going to be, yes, a better world and potentially some really amazing opportunities. So just stay the course.
Mm-hmm. Stay the course. Steady as she goes.
Yeah.
Nicole, how about you?
Yeah, so my deals right now, I don't have any rent. Luckily, I don't have any going on right now. Everything was just kind of operating tenanted. I had some vacancies and was in the process of filling them. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So with investors, I've just been trying to keep them updated, let them know, like I contacted all tenants, and that was interesting. I was doing a lot of reading online. What are other landlords doing? Talking about the first of the month coming, and is rent due as normal? Are we making accommodations? Do I even want to bring this up if someone hasn't thought about it and someone is, who totally can pay is now going to use this as an excuse? There was, a lot of talk about that. So yes, I did contact. I felt like as a human, that was for me the right thing to do, was to contact the tenants and acknowledge the elephant in the room. And so I've luckily had most tenants have been able to pay in full. Not all. We have had to work out payment plans for some of them. I would say like 12% we've had to work out payment plans. And it's this interesting balance between being kind and a human, and also you don't want to be taken advantage of and be screwed over for, unnecessarily, right?
Yeah.
So with those, I've been, it's another interesting accommodation is with some of these vacancies, we've been doing it like very virtually, so that we're going to be able to not see each other and have somebody move into a unit and not meet at all in person for May 1st, which is crazy and interesting. But yeah, what has to be done has to be done. So yeah, that's kind of where mine are at. I think that was the question that you asked, Steve. I might have been off track.
No, that's exactly it. And I think the underlying piece here that we're all doing is we're all being proactive with our communication. And something that I've just learned the hard way almost, but over the last year and a half, one of the biggest pieces that have benefited my life is increasing the volume of my communication with everybody in my life. So family is one, but especially in business. Randy and I are specifically scheduling in particular meetings through the week so that we can up our level of communication, and that's helped dramatically stay on course and positive and upbeat, and helping each other out in times of where one of us feels stressed and the other one can come into space. Same with investors, being more proactive on that gets puts their mind at ease a lot of times, just because they don't have to come to you kind of feeling like they're nagging you a little bit. If you can settle their mind by being proactive on that regard, that's huge. And especially now, or I guess maybe especially like a month ago, over the last few weeks, is being proactive with the tenants to make sure that we, as the landlord, know, or at least have contact with our tenants so that we can anticipate if that rent is coming in. Because if it's not, we need to communicate that back with any kind of partners that we have and et cetera. So that's been a huge asset for us that we've specifically worked on, and I encourage everybody else to continue to dial in and you can always improve on communication, I think.
It makes everyone feel more comfortable. You can tweak how you're, what you're saying and what your language is in your communication, but it just sets everybody at ease. It's so much better. Yeah,
and having those hard conversations too, I think is really important. Like addressing that elephant in the room, like you said. Like if we all just were sitting here, talking about that, whatever that particular situation was, and we all knew that the elephant was standing right behind me. There's that tension and that awkwardness. Whereas if you just bring it up, lay it out flat, and try to be, I guess, polite or respectful as possible through that process, you actually gain a lot of respect in their minds as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's better to have an idea and open those communication dialogues before the first of the month or whatever rent it is, then on the first not get a transfer or get an email, right? Like I'd much rather know a couple of days in advance so we can start planning, or at least I can plan what's going to be coming in and not. So I was talking to my tenants beforehand and letting them know about what government aid resources are available, so that to try, in case they aren't aware, that can definitely help bridge the gap too, right? So I don't like surprises.
No, I think as investors, we all want to know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
I have a bit of a segue here, and Nicole, I want to start with you because we're just talking about being able to do like virtual walkthroughs and stuff to meet and greet tenants, and this is probably the first time that you've had to do this on a scale, and a lot of times like we have a really good system for bringing in tenants on through our business, but there's also a level of like gut feeling, right? And if you're categorizing people as like A tenants or A plus tenants, or however that works on your system, but you have this like gut feeling of either they're hiding something or they're going to be actually really, really great, right? So starting, I guess, off with the vacancy aspect and how that's working, how is gut and intuition playing into that now that it's a virtual side of things? You can't like exactly read all of the body language or look into the pupils of my eyes and really gauge that honesty or truth factor.
Yeah, I've kind of, you don't get lucky every time when you have a vacancy and you have different applications coming in, but sometimes there's an application that you're like, oh, like this is a good one. And it doesn't mean everything's perfect about them. Their credit isn't absolutely perfect. They're not squeaky clean, but this is like a real person. I get it. I get where their money's coming from. They're a good fit, and they just feel really good. So you can kind of get that. I find sometimes from an application and an initial conversation, there's often somebody that I'm excited about, but not always. But without being able to, get that vibe in person, we've done FaceTimes with them, like Zooms, to get to see them. And something that we're doing, we're just kind of exploring it now, but we're probably going to just beef up the reference checks that we're doing, and the number of times that we're speaking to this person on the phone, the credit check, where I might have done that for one person moving in, I'm now doing it for both, things like that. Just if I'm not going to get to have that face-to-face, that I can kind of beef up the other side of it. But yeah, like from those phone calls and getting to have chats, and when I do have those phone calls, I don't want to just ask them their black and white questions. I want to have a conversation with them to get to know them. So that's the best that I'm finding to do.
Why do you think that's important, to have a conversation, not just to read a script of 5 questions?
I think that you can get a real feeling for is this person genuine? Are they truthful? Are they just answering what I want to hear and their whole story doesn't line up? And also, if they're going to be your tenant going forward, you want to kind of be on the same page with your communication, right? Like you want to know that you can vibe well together. They understand you understand them, and that it's going to be relatively easy to work together. So I feel like all of that's very important.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I'd say that there's a lot of people out there that, I kind of categorize them as like professional tenants, and they have, the perfect answer to every question, right? And there's usually like 10 questions, 10 most common questions that, landlords will ask a tenant. But when you start having a conversation, you can kind of go down rabbit holes, and then you really get to feel that emotion, that raw, unexpected emotion. And it's that level that, or it's that aspect that really gets, it gives you a really good clue to, the character of their being. Megan, how has like intuition and gut like influenced you as an investor and going through your career in business as buying or selling real estate and
I don't think I'm very good at listening to intuition. I'm a numbers person. I want to see like if the numbers make sense to me, that will be like everything. I'm good. If I'm just trying to figure it out on gut, I feel like I'm too wishy-washy. I'll bounce back and forth. That's not concrete enough for me. I need, it's just not for me personally. I've always gone based off of like I guess facts. Whereas I see, like in terms of like if I was to interview like tenants and stuff, I feel like I see that I think that everyone is good, and I know that that's not necessarily the truth, but I'm like, oh, well, this is like, I tend to maybe believe a story, and then you kind of start thinking back about it, you're like, okay, that doesn't even make sense. But I just innately think that people are good, so I don't think that that's enough for me. So I need as much facts as I can. Like Nicole was talking about beefing up reference checks and stuff. If I was to try to be finding tenants right now, I think I'd be asking for a ton of those, because I do also think that people fill in their buddy, and that was my landlord last, or something along those lines. I do think that people do that. So I'd be asking for probably a pretty long list, so that they exhausted a lot of their friends, and I got some real contacts. But yeah, I don't know. Intuition is not necessarily what my world is based off of. So I don't think I rely on that too heavily.
Mm-hmm.
I try to take emotion out of everything, because I think weak emotions can drive us in the wrong direction really easily.
Yeah, especially in a time of, uncertainty and fear in a lot of people, right? All the professionals that I've looked up to for years and years, one of the number one lessons they always say is just don't make any decisions when you're emotional of any state. Like, even if you're super jacked up and excited, that might be influencing you to commit to a deal, that you might be, kind of overlooking a couple of details that might actually change your mind if you had, a level common environment around you.
I've gotten a lot of calls and messages and emails from clients during this time that are just like freaking out. And as soon as you like sit down and have a conversation and actually review, like, hey, look at this is how it's playing out. This is our plan. And that kind of sets people at ease, instead of making irrational, like uneducated and misinformed decisions based off of, I don't know, rumors and everything that's going on, right? Everyone has an opinion about everything right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's based on fact, or it's just, I was Googling something, or I seen on Facebook, this is what's going on. So I completely agree. Try to take that emotion out of it if you can.
Mm-hmm. Laure, how about yourself? How has gut kind of played into your career?
I probably would say I go by both. Like, I'm a numbers person, but I'm also go by my gut feeling or intuition. I think I'm a firm believer in trust and verify. So if you're going to be looking for good tenants and you have a good gut feeling about them and your intuition seems good, verify that. Like, do the proper credit checks. Whatever is necessary to make sure that you can verify that your intuition is right, because it can be tricky, especially if it's business partners too, right? So for me, again, I'm very much an energy person, and I want to be able to align with that person with our values and goals. So I think it depends on the situation. So our properties in Alberta, we have property managers. So I've been lucky that I've got a good property manager there that has been the one to meet with our tenants and to interview them. And we haven't dealt with any vacancies right now and had to do these virtual, interviews. So I can't say how that'll be, how that's going to look if we are having to do virtual interviews with some of our tenants if we can't meet them in person. But I'm a bit of both. Like Megan, I think being a numbers person, I agree. The numbers have to work and make sense. You don't want to just go by your emotion and gut feeling, because that may not always work out. So trust and verify would be my advice there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Like, I think we were talking before the call. Like, I'm very data driven as well. I'm like 90% data driven, and show me the facts. That's where I'll thrive. Like, give me a journal with a whole bunch of graphs and charts in it. I'm like, this is fun time for me. And then like the emotion side of things will catch up to it almost. And if I do have, a gut feeling that house is better than that house, like, I'll make sure that I spend that time doing my own due diligence to make sure that the facts verify that gut intuition aspect of it. And I kind of want to stay on this line a little bit on the due diligence side of things, but I want to transition it to actual like tangible asset acquisition. So, what's something that you've maybe learned the hard way that you might not have known in the early days of investing, that not that you could wish can go do all over again, but something that taught you a lesson that you now implement kind of on every deal that you do now. And one that I'll just kind of start the momentum with is one thing that we do with all, if not most of our investors, is we get them to do a personality test, not test, but I don't know what they're called, personality check thing. It takes 15 minutes and kind of like spits out if they're green, blue, red, or yellow, and disc tests. And it really shows how they like to communicate. If they're analytical people, or if they're gut people and just want to see if it's a granite countertop and fancy lights, or if they're like, no, just show me the data, and a whole bunch of that kind of stuff. And we share ours with them as well. And one of the reasons we did that is on our second or third property, there was just a moment where Rain and I knew that there was going to be more conflict in the relationship than we had originally anticipated. And so one of the things we implemented and learned through that was, let's up front, before we do a partnership, let's talk about, share who each other are on a deeper level, but and easy to digest. Anybody want to start the convo, or? No, you're gonna make me pick somebody. Okay.
So knock on wood, so far in terms of like the actual investment properties that I have, I haven't come into a lot of problems or issues or things that I think were bad decisions, thankfully. On the house I purchased that I'm in right now, however, I cannot quite say the same. I was 8 months pregnant, and I think I should have been nesting or something along those lines. And instead I went and bought a house, and my partner wasn't here. He wasn't even in the province, and I went and bought a house, and we were not on the same page for what I purchased. And the house, I love our house actually, but in terms of it working as like something that we're going to make money off of, if we had stayed in the market maybe in 2016, we could have, but in the market we are in now, when we're done, finished renovating it, we'll probably just break even. So I think I let my desire to be in a house / emotion in that regard take over. And I didn't look at the numbers before I purchased this house. And that was, I think that's my one regret in terms of real estate so far, is the house that I'm personally in. I don't think it was a great buy. I do like living here, so that kind of is a little not as bad because it is our principal residence. However, the intention was to live here 2 years and get out. We are not going to be doing that now because it just doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. Because of my decision-making process.
I'm guilty of that as well. My first place was a live-in flip, and there's a little bit of motion to it because I wanted to get into a deal. I knew that the timing was really good because it was 2012, kind of bottom of the market. But the one thing I didn't account for, because it was a little bit too emotional, didn't get into the fine nitty-gritty details, was I couldn't rent out that condo later because it was my primary residence. It wasn't really a priority. But looking back, had I been able to do something differently, that would be the one thing I would have picked. The building next door, which allowed rentals. But Laurie, how about you?
I think it's similar to finding a tenant, the trust and verify. If you're going to go into a partnership, you really want to get to know the people that you're going to be partnering with, and you want to make sure that, again, you align with your goals and values, but you also have a really strong partnership agreement in place, because life happens, things change along the way. I mean, I've had partnerships that haven't worked out. I mean, at first we did a flip, there was 5 of us in a partnership, and it was all great at first, but some of us panicked along the way and wanted to sell sooner. Others, we didn't have sort of a clear a vision of what the end result was going to be. So along the way, we were trying to change things, and it didn't end up that well. So my advice would be to make sure that when you go into a partnership, that it's really clearly defined in a partnership agreement, that you get good legal advice. Never do a partnership without talking to a lawyer, I would say, and having a clear partnership agreement in place and having an out, because again, like, things happen. So just cover all angles and get legal advice.
Yeah, life is unpredictable, and partnerships or agreements between people aren't really needed if all goes well. It's more so when it's no longer rainbows and butterflies, and it's just like your oh crap document. What happens when this happens? That's awesome. Nicole, how about you?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Like, trust but verify. I feel like emotion can be like your first kind of path to get by. Because if I have a bad feeling about it, a really bad feeling, then no, we can't work together. But if I have a good feeling, that's not the final yes. Then you have to go through the verification process. I completely agree with that. And I feel like there's a lot of pitfalls in real estate if you are guiding yourself too much by emotion. Because you can, easily get caught up by this really pretty rental property that doesn't actually make money, instead of, relying on your numbers.
Yeah.
But Steve, you said the thing about the disc that you do for your investor partners. I should have done that, because my first sit down pitch to a partner, I'm, as Megan said as well, very analytical. I like the numbers. Like, that, to me, that's what'll sell me on something, if the numbers out. And so I sat with this partner, and he had heard, I had told him a little bit about the deals I was doing, so he was excited. But I went through the numbers on this deal, and he fell asleep.
Legit,
yeah. Oh my gosh. I thought, oh my God, this can't go work. So then I realized, you know what? He doesn't care about the numbers. He just wants to hear that we're going to make the money and, tell some light, fun things about it. And so I didn't make that mistake again. No, it's so true. You need to know what kind of communication they want, what kind of person they are, so that you approach them, especially if you're trying to pitch to them in their language, the way you want to hear it. I really hope once I post it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sucks that you went through that, but a great learning lesson. And I think the four of us are all fairly analytical when it comes to things, and you don't necessarily have to be an analytical person to be in real estate investing. We have a partner that is very opposite, and just I don't want to say fluffy, but just very emotionally driven, and just wants to know that all is well, and that's about it. As we kind of wind down, I just have two last questions, and maybe we'll kind of treat this as a speed round, so I can kind of respect all your time and everybody watching right now. But I want to kind of inspire people. We're going back to the start of the call. We talked about how to get kind of started. What's your words of wisdom to women getting involved now? I really want to show them like our mission is go big to give big, right? So what's a really big goal of all yours that might be inspiring for somebody watching? It could be crazy.
I could start. We want to. I want to get into multifamily next. So I've been, buy and hold these rental properties has been our strategy, and then we did the one a duplex conversion there. But we want to look at getting into multifamily, and it's not been defined yet. I don't know, but that's sort of our next big step. And I think for any women that are just starting off, you're never going to have all your ducks in a row. I think that's something too. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Start small, build a good team. Just start somewhere. But education too. Just be part of these groups like the REINVESTORS, and find good mentors. But for me, the next thing for us is looking at multifamily, and just kind of stepping it up a notch there, that level.
Awesome. Megan?
My next goal, it's not like the end game goal is to get into building multifamily, like kind of thinking of 12 townhouses or something along those lines, being currently in just like the single family development. So that would be, I guess, my goal. And where I want to see that go, eventually I would like to have that as rental properties that could hopefully fund me being able to really put some time and effort into a nonprofit idea that I have seen in other communities that I would really like to see here in Victoria. So I'm hoping that my next few real estate steps is going to assist me in both time as well as financial resources to be able to get that started. So.
Sweet. And Nicole?
So my goal, yeah, I'm sure like everybody's, has really evolved over time. And so kind of similar to what Megan just said, once, this real estate income was working and I had more free time, I've wanted to focus more on something, a charity or starting something, and something that I could really put my time and focus into.
Mm-hmm.
It's ironic because my police check that I had to get to start volunteering came in last week, but now we're on lockdown, so that's gonna wait. But I've been thinking lately about kind of where I would want to put that time. I have not settled on anything. I thought volunteering at a few different places would, kind of maybe turn me in a direction, but now I'm waiting. Actually, my goal previously was always to buy a bigger multi-unit and keep going up. And within the last year and a half, I decided that the buy, fix, rent, refinance strategy is I don't want to continue doing that for the rest of my life. That's not where I want to put my focus. I want this to be passive. I wanted to do that at the beginning, to build it, to then be passive, so I could put my focus elsewhere. And so I've kind of shifted my goal from moving equity, keeping those, but when I'm able to refinance, moving them into more passive streams so that my time can be moved elsewhere. So that's where my goals are now.
Hey, congrats on that pivot, that change. I think we all kind of want to be passive investors, sooner than later. Last question I have for you, and then we can all kind of like wrap up and continue on with the rest of our afternoons. With a lot of people staying at home a lot more than they're used to, I think there's probably some people going a little bit crazy. And I was one of them last week. I work from home anyways, but last week was especially just weird. And I definitely felt like a little bit of tension in my body, getting a little bit short with some people. And then, I took a second to stop, reflect, and be like, all right, I need to change this because I'm aware of what's going on now. And it made an implementation change. What's something that works for you three when you're feeling like a little bit tense or something like that, or stressed out, or a little bit uncomfortable maybe? Could be as simple as reading a book or going for a walk, but just want to kind of get to know you a little bit more, and what's something that really works for you that might work for somebody watching. Megan, let's go with you.
Working out is my thing. That's where my frustration can go. And then just getting outside. We're so lucky here in Victoria right now. Like this week, we're supposed to get up to 16. I've been getting outside for at least a couple hours each day. It totally calms me down. It might take a half an hour of being out there, but and it works really good because it calms my 3-year-old down too, the more he gets outside. So it's kind of beneficial for everyone in this house right now, everyone's sanity. But getting outside, getting some vitamin D, and trying not get away from more so like the screens and social media, reading, because I think the more I read about what's going on, the more I get like all just amped up. And it's not benefiting me any. It didn't change any of my decisions, so it just is literally just kind of like toxic. Unfortunately, it's good to be educated on what's going on, but at the same time, you have to see how that's affecting your mental and emotional state. And for me, wasn't helping at all.
Yeah. Nicole?
Mine's very similar to Megan's. At the beginning, I was watching a ton of news and feeling super stressed. And so I agree, after you get the information, turning it off and going outside for long walks and like listening to music has been a huge de-stressor. Also reading. This is not the book I'm reading now, but because this is like the women panel, a book that I had read that I would recommend is Lean In by Sheryl Sandberg. I don't know if anyone's read that. She is or was the CEO of Facebook, a female, and her whole book is all about women in the workplace and women and their achieving. So I'd recommend that with all the free time everyone has.
Nice. And Laurie?
You know, similar to Megan and Nicole, we've turned part of our apartment into a little gym. So, you know, working out is important. Limiting my time on social media and watching the news. I think it's too much of it's toxic. Getting outdoors, being with nature, meditating, just kind of just spending my time wisely. I know the first week I was out of sorts and I just felt a bit uneasy and on edge. And now this week I'm just trying to use my time wisely and just keep a healthy mindset as best as I can to get through this.
Body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
Amen. Awesome. Well, you guys have all taught me something through this conversation, through all of our history together. I've learned so much from all three of you. And I know a lot of people in our community will find this really valuable as well. So I just want to, appreciate you guys for investing your time into this and into our community. Really, really appreciate it. It's so valuable. And, what's one of the little silver linings around, coronavirus is we have the time now, all of us, to do these regularly. And so we're doing them every Tuesday and Friday. Hopefully you guys can continue to participate and contribute value. Just really, really respect you guys from a professional level and from a friend level as well. So thank you so much for being here. And for everybody watching, I'm sure it goes without saying, like, you guys can direct message these three, find them. I think they're all in our Facebook group, so you can connect with them all through there. And they're more than happy to provide some feedback or some encouragement for you, and maybe just a direction of how to get forward or move forward. So again, thanks for being here, and really appreciate your time, and stay safe out there and hopefully enjoy some sun.
Stay sane, guys.
Bye. Stay well.
Bye, you guys too.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you, Nicole.
You too, Megan.
All right, guys, take care. Bye-bye.